Karma, the prominent system of the infamous franchise, and many others. Almost everyone who's played these games has done 2 playthroughs of the storylines. One as the hero, and one as infamous. But I'd wager a lot of them do it just for the sake of doing it, and purely for seeing the differences in gameplay. As the hero, you're powerful, you're altruistic, and give everyone around you some semblance of hope in the face of certain Armageddon. As the villain, you're unstoppable, a savage, and give people around you a reason to live in fear every day. But is it really that simple? Personally, I believe it's better to be a hero in Second Son because you're keeping your promise to the Accuses tribe, as you seem like infinitely more of an asshole if you choose to be infamous. But for the moment, this isn't about infamous Second Son or even Delson Rowe. This is about Cole McGrath, the protagonist who kicked off the franchise back in 2009. We all know what has since been canonized. Cole lived a hero and died a hero. But I disagree with the main canon. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that the canon path doesn't apply for the first game per the story. This includes the fact that the devs had originally planned for the evil path to be canonized until they had seen the player data, which had shown that people had overwhelmingly chosen to play the hero. Now, I've said this in the beginnings of my respective playthroughs of the first 2 games. Evil Karma makes sense in the first game up until the mission End of the Road, just before you fight Kessler. The main reason I've said this is because Cole McGrath is constantly referred to as the quote-unquote Demon of Empire City all throughout the storyline of Infamous 2. Whether it's by Bertrand,
Tonight, we face the gravest threat that this fair city has ever seen. The devil walks among us. Cole McGrath, the electric man, is here. Enumerate.
the militia, or even civilians.
Sarah, we run with you.
He saved me. There were hundreds of those monsters. He fought them all. He can do stuff like you never seen.
The Demon of Empire City.
Looking at it after playing through Infamous 1 with Evil Karma, I feel it's a lot more complex than simply, am I a hero or am I a villain? Plus, the storyline, at least to me, paints the same picture. To explain my point, I'll highlight it from the perspectives of both real life and the storyline, and just to be concise, I'm not involving the side missions, or any choices that seem to have very little narrative impact, like the posters for instance. I'll cover the major parts of the main storyline as a whole, with some of the general gameplay as well. I'll also highlight 3 different points in Cole's story, 2 where he wouldn't go with the evil choice, and 1 where it would be up in the air. And unlike in the first rendition of the video, I'll be showing the post-blast comics to hopefully give more insight behind why these choices would make sense. With all that said, let's start this off. Infamous starts off with a bang. Literally. You get introduced to Cole McGrath, a bike courier who receives a package that causes an explosion, resulting in the immediate 6-block radius being reduced to rubble, with him caught dead center. Shortly after the blast, Cole wakes up with the area he was standing before the explosion being just about all that remains. Injured, he starts making his escape, with his best friend Zeke calling him to say that he needs to get out of the area. As he's making his way through the rubble and what remains of the buildings, he comes into contact with live electricity and ends up absorbing it, with him remarking afterwards that it should have killed him. This happens to him once more, with him wondering every step of the way as to what's going on, and upon making his way to the bridge, with Zeke shouting for him to make his way across, Cole gets hit with electricity for the 3rd time, this also impacting the various policemen around him, and he ends up having to use every ounce of his strength that he still has to get across. Once he makes his way, he collapses into a coma, gets dragged from the chaos, and laid out in a makeshift hospital bed, with Zeke and Cole's girlfriend Trish surrounding him. A few days after, Cole wakes up and is questioned by Zeke and Trish about what happened before the blast, when Cole starts convulsing and collapses again, lifeless. More time passes and he fully wakes up, with Zeke telling him that he'd actually died. Yeah, Cole was clinically dead, no pulse at all, for 6 minutes straight before the game itself had even started. Cole, speechless, is told by Zeke that the blast had done something to him, that it gave him the ability to manipulate electricity. He rejects this entirely, telling Zeke that superpowers don't exist, but Trish walks in and tells Cole that what Zeke is saying is true, and that she's terrified. 3 hours later, near the docks, crowds of people gather in an attempt to escape from Empire City on ships, with some, if not just about all of them, being forced back by the police because their names aren't on whatever list they have, preventing them from leaving. During this, some zombie-like figures begin attacking everyone, with the police being forced to open fire. As this is going on, Cole and Trish are shown having a talk about what was said back in the apartment, and Trish explains that what she saw goes against everything she'd ever been taught in med school. He asks her what they're gonna do, what'll happen if his newfound powers come back, with Trish questioning whether or not they even went away, remarking that if it happened once, it could happen again, and that a lot of people could get hurt. The next day, Zeke takes Cole on a mission of his own in an attempt to have Cole try to expand his power. Cole expresses that it's pointless, that they should just forget about the entire thing, but Zeke emphatically tells him that he's got to consider the fact that the plague zombies running amok in the city, and that Cole's powers might be the only thing that can keep them safe. He encourages Cole to wake up his powers and fry the dumpster in front of them, with Cole arguing that it isn't so simple. With more encouragement from Zeke and him feeling embarrassed at what he's doing, Cole tries to use his powers, with only a few small bolts being what he can show, and he laughs at how pathetic it is. Zeke, on the other hand, is elated and tells him how fun it's going to be. 3 more days go by, and Zeke and Cole are in Archer Square, with Zeke negotiating a battery for food against a woman who claims that he promised a charged battery rather than a dead one. Cole tries telling him that it's a bad idea, with the woman they're trading with remarking that she thought Zeke was the crazy one. Cole tells her to stand back, and he charges the battery with his powers, but instead of looking at him in awe, the woman yells at them both to leave, and Cole has to physically drag Zeke away from the area, with Zeke arguing every step of the way how the woman owes them. Later, Zeke and Cole are shown walking the streets of the Neon, going back and forth about the idea they just tried to enact. Cole telling Zeke that it was a bad move, and Zeke retorting that they had to try something in order to get food, that they had not eaten in over a day. During this, a group of people storm past the two after having stolen some supplies, with Zeke trying to get Cole to stop them, but Cole telling him that there's no point and that they needed to get back to the roof. The two keep running, and Cole calls Trish, telling her to stay on the roof due to the streets being as dangerous as they are, and they bear witness to the ensuing riots. As they get back to the building, Trish goes to meet with them, asking what's happening, and Zeke tells her that the powder keg is cooking off and that the city's coming undone. They make their way back to the roof, and Zeke tells the two that they have to fortify it, making it look like there's more than just the 3 of them up there, so nobody gets the idea to rob them. With the 3 looking out over the horizon, Zeke says to Cole and Trish that things look like they're going to get much worse than they are, leading to the events of the game as we know it. At the start of the game, 2 weeks have gone by since the blast. With the first mission, it starts off with Cole recharging Zeke's TV and practicing with his powers against mannequins atop the roof. Then, an airdrop flies through the city, dropping off food and supplies to people within the quarantine. Cole, at this point, has much more control of his powers, showing this by jumping off of Zeke's roof and walking it off. Trish calls him and tells him off a bit after Cole says what he's just done, while he and Zeke head for Archer Square. During the trek over, Zeke stops to get a new gun, with Cole showing more of his abilities by way of moving cars out of the way where the gun had been hidden, and the two continue to where the drop had fallen. Cole, naturally, needs to climb atop the statue where the parachute had been caught on, and while doing so, one of the enemy factions, the Reapers, ambush everyone heading for it, aiming to keep the supplies for themselves. Cole fights them off, and afterwards, you're faced with the first karmic choice. Let everyone take their own supplies from the drops, or fire into the crowd and keep it all for himself, Zeke, and Trish. Looking at this, I believe things here could really go either way. Hear me out. I realize this is about evil karma, but let me explain. From a real-life perspective, Cole has seen everything, from riots to innocent people getting killed just for being nearby. And he knows exactly how much he, Zeke, and Trish are suffering. Zeke and Trish especially. Cole's got the benefit of having superpowers to defend himself and his own, but everyone else doesn't. On one hand, yes, he's just walked off from a blast that killed a lot of people, while at the dead center, and got superpowers as a result, all while the city is tearing itself apart. It's fairly reasonable enough to say that he would, at the very least, be enticed to keep all the food for himself and his own. Survival makes us do things that we wouldn't do otherwise, even if it means sacrificing the needs of others for the sake of it. None of them know where or even when they're gonna get food next. Plus, if anybody had powers like Cole does, virtually nobody can stand in opposition to you. A decent amount of people myself included, would likely be much more bold, much more confident in our abilities to handle our own. In a situation like the Empire City quarantine, it's every man for himself, and your primary goal would be protecting yourself and whomever you hold dear from any dangers that lay ahead. But, on the other hand, there are only 3 people. Sure, Cole already said that the food in the airdrops is enough to keep the 3 of them fed for weeks, if not longer. But there's tons of other people who are suffering as well. There's a good chance that due to being in a poverty-ridden, treacherous, foodless quarantine zone, somebody is gonna get either bold or desperate enough to follow Zeke, and especially Trish, since she's a doctor, back to their safe zone and conjure a plan to storm the place for anything and everything that they can find. Taking all of the food and firing upon civilians would probably only serve to prevent them from going against Cole himself, as opposed to Zeke or Trish. And they'd likely wait for Cole to leave before they strike. Yes, the 3 of them need to eat, especially Zeke and Trish, but Cole's likely thinking mainly about his loved ones more than himself due to his abilities granting him enhanced durability. From the story perspective, Cole was in a coma for only 4 days, yet it was long enough for the city to start coming undone. Nobody is coming to help anyone. Not the cops, not the government, not the military, nobody. Everyone is on their own. It would make sense if Cole decided to only look out for Zeke and Trish, because nobody else is going to. He couldn't do it while he was unconscious, and he would probably feel more of an obligation to do so, especially since they looked out for him. Also including the fact that there wasn't anyone who could help him when it came to his powers, but they both, especially Zeke, still helped him anyway. Yet at the same time, Cole doesn't have much of a reason to start steamrolling everyone he comes across. And protecting someone you care about doesn't inherently mean you start slaughtering everyone who even breathes in their direction. Sure, it's about making sacrifices, and sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, even if they hate it in the moment, when it comes down to the wire. But the Reapers are already making people's life a living hell. Innocent people, not murderous psychos, innocents, have it rough enough already. With all this in mind, I think Cole would at the very least try to do the right thing the first time around and allow the civilians to take what food they needed. But it doesn't matter which decision is made here. Cole would find himself with a target on his back much bigger than he could have even remotely imagined. Shortly after this, Cole, Zeke, Trish, and the public are greeted by the TV Jacker, who shows footage from moments before the blast, specifically focusing on the footage that has Cole in it, painting him as a terrorist. Even though he was just doing his job, Cole is now in everyone's crosshairs, all of them blaming him for the city being locked down and crime-ridden, as well as thousands of people having died in the destruction. Regardless of the decision he's just made, whether it be to keep the food or give it to everyone else, Cole is currently stuck taking the brunt of everyone's aggression. Now, here's where evil karma takes a hold. Despite him giving everyone the food, as Cole tries to leave, people begin to swarm in, all of them screaming about how the current situation is all his fault. They attack him, some trying to jump him while others throw rocks from the sidelines. The reason I say evil karma makes sense here is because Cole, at first, only had to focus on the well-being of Zeke and Trish rather than necessarily himself. But now, everywhere he goes, he's got to keep his head on a swivel. He can't plead his own case because nobody, aside from maybe Zeke, would even remotely listen to him. His own, now ex-girlfriend, blames him for the death of her sister, and even if Zeke, his own best friend, would listen to him, he's still giving Cole the side eye after what the TV Jacker has just shown. Combining all of this, it's enough to make even the calmest, most collected of people act out in retaliation. Simply keeping a low profile, just blending in, has gone out the window when, around every corner, someone could recognize you and cause everyone within the immediate vicinity to swarm you. Cole has almost no choice in the matter. And if it means protecting himself, I'd say it's reasonable to believe that he would even go as far as using his powers if or when he's pushed too far. Not kill civilians necessarily, just that he'd kick the shit out of them in self-defense. I want to make sure I stress that. Nonetheless, he and Zeke make way for the bridge that leads outside of Empire City, but it's blocked off by riot police to keep anyone from leaving, especially if they're infected with the plague. Here, we're faced with another karma choice. Fire at the cops from within the crowd and trigger a riot, or fire from outside the crowd and take the brunt of the assault. Here, from a story perspective, I believe it makes sense for Cole to fire from inside the crowd, because he's just taken abuse from the very people he gave food to. Not only that, but he had also just defended them from a gun-toting gang who was hell-bent on taking that same food drop, and they met him with crucifixion, despite what he'd just done, without even second-guessing what the TV jacker had just told them. They just took what he said and ran with it. Cole may have had a hand in the blast, yes, but at the same time, it's arguably a classic case of someone laid the dynamite, but you lit the fuse. Cole, at this point, knowing he didn't have any clue what was in the package he was given and was just doing what he was told, doesn't have much of a reason to defend the very civilians that had just tried to jump him against getting their asses kicked by riot cops. From a real life perspective, let's be honest with ourselves here. There is not a lot of us that would decide to defend the very people who just tried to attack you, let alone attack you for something that you didn't even know you were doing, and after you just given them food. Combining the terrorist moniker, civilians attacking you, your best friend looking at you sideways, and losing your girlfriend, all because one guy said that you caused the quarantine, would be enough to, as I said earlier, make even the most calm, collected, sane, altruistic people lose their cool and say, fuck you all, you can deal with this. There's also not much Cole really stands to gain from taking the brunt of the assault from the riot cops, aside from the potential body count. And to round back a little more to the previous choice, Cole has taken it upon himself to protect Zeke, who is probably the only one who would stick by him at this point, even if he gives Cole a side eye every now and again over what the TV jacker has just said. How other people view his actions at this moment isn't gonna matter much if they manage to get out of the city and to a point where Cole can attempt to clear his name. As they make their way across the bridge, through the cops, Cole, Zeke, and what remains of the crowd all open the doors to a firing squad. Thinking quickly, Zeke jumps off the bridge into the water, seemingly to his death, and Cole runs and jumps into a nearby trailer where he's greeted by name by FBI agent Moya, who gives him some quote-unquote work only he can do. Now, Cole has Moya in his ear 24/7, who makes him do all the dirty work to find her quote-unquote husband, John White, who was undercover in another faction called the First Sons, which is the faction that created the Ray Sphere. This device is what caused the explosion and gave Cole his powers. It concentrated the neuroelectric energy from people caught in the radius into one individual with the conduit gene, which allows for the manifestation of their superpowers, whatever they may be. John White was also shown in the post-blast comic. He followed Cole as he was carrying the Ray Sphere, aiming to prevent him from accidentally setting it off, which obviously failed, after which he'd gotten it back and returned the Ray Sphere to the First Sons. But for Cole, all of this was purely in the name of getting him and Zeke out of the city and clearing his name. Cole makes it back across the bridge into the city and reunites with Zeke, who hates the fact that he, as a fat man, had to swim for dear life. They go back to the rooftop and sleep off everything that's just happened. And after he wakes up, Cole gets back to work with Moya. Throughout their time, Cole is tasked with doing a number of things, from recharging substations to dealing with mysterious black tar that's making the public sick. Anything that Moya feels is within his abilities. Now, one of the situations where I believe Cole would go completely against the grain and do something good regardless is when he comes across the man in the sewer. During this mission, Cole is tasked by Moya to track down a known ally, an electrician named Brandon Carey. As he makes his way to the location Moya described, Cole ends up finding Brandon's wife, Lene, dead in a parking lot and uses a new power. The abilities of both seeing the memories of people before they died and tracking echoes of certain people who were recently in the area. He follows the echo to an above-ground substation, fighting Reapers along the way, and once he gets close, a suicidal Reaper blows it up, leading to Cole having to go down into the sewers to the substation underground, where he finds Brandon refusing to open the pathway to resetting it unless he's reunited with his wife. Here, Cole can either just blast his way through, killing Brandon in the process, or let Brandon know of Lene's death in hopes of him opening the door. From the story view, I believe that Cole would decide to inform Brandon of Lene's death, mainly because of how much he himself still cares about Trish, as we see all throughout the game. No matter how much she may chastise him for what's happened, no matter how much she blames him for the death of Amy, he still loves her. Due to this, Cole would most likely feel obligated to at least tell the man that his wife is dead, as he'd probably imagine what it's like were he in Brandon's position. Plus, the entirety of the neon had just gone dark, and he'd likely want to conserve what amount of energy he has, barring the fact that gameplay mechanics would tell you that there's an unlimited supply of electricity underground. From a real-life view, we all have some amount of a conscience. We all have some sense of empathy and compassion for our fellow humans, especially when you have someone in your life that you hold dear. The vast majority of people, once again myself included, would feel that someone at least has the right to know what happened to their loved one, especially if it involves the death of said loved one. Although there is a time and place for everything, I argue that there's no such thing as the idea of blissful ignorance in terms of losing someone you love. Unless you're a sociopath, in which case you're an anomaly. But moving on. Turning his attention to the Black Tar, Cole meets with Trish, who currently loathes him for his aforementioned hand in her sister's death, and has him turn a valve on a water supply behind her. Doing this results in Cole taking a hit of the Black Tar to the face, and he has to deal with hallucinations from another conduit, of whom we find out later is Sasha. Trish orders Cole to follow her to her ambulance while tripping out the entire time, and he falls to the ground, getting sprayed with the substance shortly after to remove the tar. After he gets back to his feet, Trish chastises him once again, saying that that was the only time she'd help him, and that if he got more of it on him, he'd have to wait for it to wear off. Cole reports to Moya about where the tar is coming from, who then tells him to shut off the other water valves. Cole does so and subsequently gets blasted with tar for a second time. When you come up to the final valve, you're faced with another karmic choice, either turning the valve yourself and getting blasted with the tar yet again, or forcing a civilian to do it for you and stay clean. Now, barring the fact that Cole quite obviously could just try to turn the valve from the side, looking at this from a real-life view, almost nobody wants to be blasted with a hallucinogenic substance against their will or better judgment, let alone have some crazy woman in your head that you don't even know trying to make passes on you, especially when she looks like this. Now, if she was a goth girl, it'd be understandable and all the more enticing, but this bitch is just plain fucking ugly.
You bald-headed demon.
Show some respect.
From this perspective, from this perspective, it makes sense to have someone else do it for you as a means of avoiding the hallucinations. As for the storyline, I can't fucking stop laughing. Oh man, I guess I cracked myself up more than I care to admit. Okay, come on. Come on, man, back to it. As for the storyline, Cole is the only one who's being tasked with doing these things. He's now an unwilling puppet of the FBI and is being subjected to doing all of this stuff under the guise of getting out of the city. If it means staying sane, even for a moment to carry out future missions, it makes sense for Cole to do what it takes to do so. Even though the hallucinations don't seem to last for very long, they inhibit how much power Cole has at his disposal, which could very well mean life or death for him with how many enemies he has to fight, even if it's just an inconvenience for him at the current moment. All of this also applies to the next missions involving the devices attached to the water towers on the rooftops. It makes sense for Cole to destroy the devices to stay sane, even at the expense of more people getting sick. Once again, this is barring the fact that anyone could, quite literally, just turn the valve from the side and avoid taking a direct hit to the face. For the devices on the water tower, you're kinda shit out of luck. It's either blowing them up from a distance or up close, of which my point still stands. At the end of this mission, Cole meets a mysterious man. Upon asking who he is, he replies that he's quote-unquote just a concerned citizen and leaps toward him, grabbing onto Cole's face. In doing this, he shows Cole visions of what the future apparently holds. One of death, destruction, and catastrophe. It was all this man's fault, and the Ray Sphere lied dead center of it all. In the moments Cole takes the stand, the man disappears. Following this, Cole returns to the grunt work tasked to him by Moya, and later goes toe-to-toe with Sasha in the Reaper compound, bringing her down. Upon deciding to try and get her to talk, the hideout is blown up and Cole gets trapped beneath some rubble. He bears witness to Sasha being pulled out of the wreckage, and as water begins flooding in, Cole's forced to make an escape before it kills him, leading him to the next district, the Warren, where he goes toe-to-toe with the next gang faction. the Dustmen. Following him recharging the first substation, Cole finds himself helping workers lower the bridge connecting the Warren to the Neon at the request of Trish, thereby making travel between the two districts much easier for everyone within Empire City. Afterwards, Zeke asks Cole for help with finding out what happened with someone they knew, Dwight, in an attempt for Zeke to score with Dwight's sister. Upon heading to the location Zeke described, Cole finds nothing but Dwight's corpse, with Zeke telling Cole that he should find out what happened, that maybe it could help him score with the sister, with Cole visibly disturbed by Zeke's request, but reluctantly helping him anyway. After taking down the Dustman responsible for Dwight's death, Cole returns to the rooftop, with Zeke telling him how things are going to go great, but that he has to leave quickly. Waking up the next day, Zeke reveals that things didn't go well, and that
Dwight's sister just took off. Man, it was a disaster.
What? I thought you were golden.
Wanted to treat her right, you know? Show her a good time, let things simmer a bit. Any old idiot can land a one-nighter. I wanted something more. Like what you and Trish had. Well, anyway, she comes over and says she can only stay a minute or two and starts talking about, I don't know how she really digs me, but she sees me as a friend. I'll always be your friend, Zeke. She actually said that to me.
Oh, man.
Yeah, women are something else. Never will understand them.
F's for Zeke in the chat. After this, Cole once again returns to his newfound pastime of recharging more substations, and Moya later calls to order him to tell Zeke to stop calling her with offers for his help. With the next mission, Moya has Cole recover a flight recording from a downed UAV drone to figure out the one controlling them. And during all of this, Cole is contacted by the man who showed him visions of the future and the leader of the First Sons, Kessler. He calls Cole, revealing Sasha's torture over the phone, and they have this interaction, with Kessler dropping one of the best quotes I think ever said in this game.
On the contrary, I'm weak, quite weak in fact, which is why you need to learn this lesson and learn it well. Everyone has their breaking point. You, me, even dear, sweet Sasha. What separates the strong from the weak is the ability to take the beating. Hell, to love the beating. No matter how great the pain, never wavering from what needs to be done. Think you can remember that?
Screw you.
Cole returns his attention to the UAV drones, and upon collecting them all, Moya tells him he needs to get to a building with a powerful enough satellite uplink to send her the data, fending off Dustmen in the process. After this, he heads for his next assignment near the harbor, with Moya telling him he needs to disable boats the Dustmen are planning to use to breach the quarantine with hostages to escape the city, risking deadly force being authorized for the military maintaining the quarantine from outside the city. Cole tells Moya that as much as he doesn't want the blood of innocents on his hands, he doesn't know what this has to do with the deal he has with her, but is immediately shut down and told that if Moya can't maintain control of the situation, she'll be replaced, the military will bomb the city, and Cole will be rendered a fugitive, with the deal between them being squandered. Begrudgingly, Cole obliges, disabling the boats and saving the hostages. Later, Cole passes by a shipyard, with a voice calling out to him about how he can't just strut up and wreck house, and that his fat friend has been captured, saying that he's gonna get killed really slow, prompting Cole to say,
You idiots just made the biggest mistake of your lives.
And then storm the place. During this battle, a container that seemingly holds Zeke falls, scaring Cole half to death, only for it to be revealed that he's been held separately, with Cole then freeing him from captivity. Upon going to meet with him, Cole questions Zeke, with Zeke telling him that all he's trying to do is help out. This follows with Cole verbally crucifying Zeke, saying that he could have gotten himself killed, with Zeke retorting that just because Cole has powers, it doesn't make him better than everyone or render everyone around him useless. But they end up making amends later on. Following this, Trish contacts Cole, telling him that she plans to bring a busload of people to the hospital for treatment and that she needs help defending it because she got attacked on her last run. After helping her, and once the bus reaches the hospital, thinking it's just another job well done, Cole comes face to face with yet another conduit, Alden Tate. Alden lifts the bus from the ground and throws it to the hospital's rooftop, with Trish and the patient still inside, thus prompting Cole to rush to their aid. After saving her, and saying how he wouldn't know what to do if she got killed, Trish chastises him yet again, expressing how Cole's actions are undoing all of her hard work, and further emphasizing that it doesn't have to be this way, that he's bringing it on himself. Continuing on, Cole later helps the cops go after Alden, and after having defeated a golem, with the cops having captured him during the fight, the Dustmen begin terrorizing the streets in armored buses, mowing down anyone in their way, with Cole having to stop them. During this, Zeke calls Cole to tell him that he's over at Eagle Point Penitentiary helping the cops, much to Cole's surprise, but with Zeke expressing that any cops who stayed in Empire were alright in his book. After taking down the buses, Cole heads to Eagle Point to help out the cops, and Zeke fend off waves of the Dustmen trying to break Alden out. Just as the battle starts getting heated, Zeke later arrives from inside the prison to join in on the fun, only for this to result in Alden breaking out of his captivity, much to Cole's frustration and Zeke's dismay. The two go back inside the prison, only to see a bloodbath, with Cole remarking internally that he doubts Zeke is going to forgive himself for this, and that he doesn't even know if he should. Later on, Cole is contacted by none other than John White himself, stating that they need to talk. Upon going to meet John, the two are ambushed by a helicopter calling for John to reveal himself, prompting John to take off. Cole gets a hold of Moya, frantically questioning why she brought a chopper, but she says she didn't, pinning it entirely on the First Sons. Cole follows the chopper to John's location, leading to a fight with more Dustmen, and John disappearing during the chaos. After the fight, John contacts Cole again, with back and forth between the two about Moya's position in all of this. Following this, Cole contacts Zeke, telling him that he needs his help going after Alden, with Zeke questioning it due to Cole's previous statements about how he's just making the situation worse, but Cole maintains that he still needs his help, telling him to meet at the tower that the Dustmen are building. The two make their way there, with Cole informing Zeke of the situation, and the latter stating that he's in. After they ascend the towers, a boss fight ensues between Cole and Alden, and for Kessler to make yet another appearance, with a brief back and forth between him and Alden. Zeke yanks the ray sphere out from its holdings, finding himself caught between Alden and Kessler. Despite the fact that there clearly was enough time to run, in the heat of the moment, he activates the device. But nothing. Nothing happens. Kessler immediately jumps in, telling Zeke that he knows what's happening and that he needs to go with him if he wants powers of his own. Zeke looks back, then turns around and runs towards Kessler, betraying Cole. In response, Alden goes apeshit, destroying part of the tower, with Cole just shrugging it off out of sheer confusion over what's just happened. John contacts Cole, crucifying him over his trust in Zeke, with Cole expressing that Zeke was the only one he did trust, but John simply tells Cole to head for the historic district and to chase after Alden, then go after Kessler, that they need to get to the ray sphere and destroy it, giving Cole his word that that's his sole intention. Upon making way for the bridge, Cole fights off the Dustmen, with Moya contacting him during this, questioning why she couldn't contact Cole before, to which he just shrugs it off, telling her that he doesn't have time to talk. As he makes his way over the bridge, he fights Alden one last time, bringing him down yet again. But just as he's about to get killed, he tries reasoning with Cole, saying that they should band together and both take down Kessler. As he sees Cole's hesitation, he throws himself off the bridge, with Cole questioning whether or not Alden's alive, but later shrugging it off, saying that it doesn't matter. As he crosses the rest of the bridge, he says to himself that he feels like he's crossing the finish line, but that he wishes he wasn't doing it alone. Now in the historic district, Cole is at the mercy of Kessler. The latter planted bombs all throughout different parts of the district, tasking Cole with disarming them while holding Trish hostage. At the end of this mission, Kessler gives Cole the dilemma of a lifetime. Save 6 doctors at the expense of Trish, or save Trish at the expense of 6 doctors. In this situation, from a real life view, I believe it makes more sense to go for Trish due to the fact of her being a close loved one and someone you know is incredibly competent in what she does. It's much more instinctive for you to, as mentioned previously, protect the ones closest to you, even if it's at the cost of the safety of other people around you. You don't know who the doctors are. Sure, they probably have families of their own, but all you know is what Kessler has told you. They're doctors. That's it. Plus, not to mention, if playing this for the first time, you don't even know if Kessler could necessarily be lying to you. But anyways, even if they can do a lot of good themselves, Trish herself is still a doctor and would continue to do her part to help everyone around. Yes, she's one person, and one person can't exactly save the entire city, but she's someone that you actually know has medical experience nonetheless. Majority of people once again, myself included, would find the idea of losing someone you love as the single deciding factor, one way too difficult to ignore. This is essentially what sums it up. A hero would sacrifice you to save a lot, but a villain would sacrifice a lot to save you. From the story perspective, Cole was just betrayed by Zeke, who sided with Kessler as a means of trying to get powers of his own. Even if in spite of the fact that Trish would still chastise him for undoing all of her work, Cole still loves her regardless. Much like with Zeke prior to his betrayal, he still feels the obligation to protect her, even after everything she said to him. It's shown when Alden attacked during the bus ride at the hospital that even after everything she said to him, he still wants to protect her from the gangs that rose up and have ravaged the city's streets. It's all too knee-jerk for him to come to the rescue of those he holds close, regardless of how high the stakes may be. He's constantly risked his life for them. He has more of a connection with Trish, and there's not much of a major reason to save the other doctors beyond the fact of their occupation. Unfortunately though, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Trish dies either way. Upon saving her, with Cole using his powers to briefly revive her, she uses her last moments of life to chastise him one last time, telling him, in her own words, that God had given him those powers, but Cole had squandered them by only thinking of himself. Now, here's where we deviate almost entirely from the evil Cole side of things and go back to my primary reason of this entire video. During the second to last mission, End of the Road, Cole helps John White smoke out the First Sons in order to get to the Ray Sphere, using fucking fentanyl of all things, which I didn't even know could apparently be used as a sleeper agent, but moving on.
I want fentanyl.
This, however, doesn't work, and they end up leaving with it after having the gas dropped on them, and taking it to the nearby docks in an attempt to take it away by boat, with Cole following not far behind them. Cole dispatches the hostiles and is then left with a choice of destroying the Ray Sphere or activating it in an attempt to gain more power. From a story perspective, I believe it makes sense for Cole to destroy it, because simply put, Cole has just lost Trish, Zeke has betrayed him, and has made a plethora of bad decisions up to this point. Everything came crumbling down for him, and Trish even used her last moments of life to scold him for using his powers negatively, with Zeke even trying, albeit in vain at the time, to tell him that he wasn't trying to get Trish killed in the process, he just didn't want to feel useless. This all most likely was more than enough to make him question everything he'd done leading up to him losing Trish, from triggering the riot on the bridge to something as simple as going off on Zeke for him questioning what Cole was becoming. He became someone that neither of them knew prior to the blast, even despite his reasonings arguably being more justified than they'd realized. He wasn't trying to steamroll over any innocents that got caught in his path because he hated people or because he had a raging bloodlust. He was just trying to protect those he cared about in ways he thought were right, but in the process, people still got hurt. Not only innocents, but also those he held dear. Not to mention, after doing so, when Kessler voices his disapproval to Cole for his actions,
I'm disappointed, Cole. The Ray Sphere was the catalyst of your powers, and it could have strengthened you even more, but you rejected it. I, for one, wouldn't have done the same thing.
Cole tells him,
Yeah, well, I'm not like you. It took me a while, but I finally realized that this isn't about me, about what I want. Not anymore. It's about keeping this city safe. And once you're dead, no one will ever threaten it again.
This to me solidifies the fact that Cole wanted to redeem himself after Trish had died, taking to heart the fact that she had told him in her dying moments that he was doing everything wrong. It just didn't hit him until he was beside Trish as she breathed for the last time. To flip this towards real life, imagine for a second that the one you love, that you hold the dearest, whom of which you managed to briefly revive to speak to them one last time, opted to tell you that you became something worse than you were after everything had begun, that they were ashamed and disappointed in who you currently are. This alone would likely be enough to make even the more morally corrupt than average people question everything they thought they'd known up to that moment. You would give anything and everything to bring back the one you lost to make things right, but you can't. You do not, nor will not, have a chance like that ever again. After dealing with something like that, it stands to reason that the majority of people, myself especially included, would destroy the device as a means of trying to start righting their wrongs. Taking that moment as the one chance you have to do right by who you lost, and making a conscious effort to do the right thing for the foreseeable future, even if the one you love is no longer around to see it. After all of this, Cole finally goes toe-to-toe with Kessler, and during the fight, Zeke jumps into the fray to try and help take him down, intending to redeem himself, only for Kessler to slap him out of the way, with Kessler remarking to Cole that nobody would save him this time. In the end, Cole emerges victorious over Kessler, bringing him down. But there's still one thing remaining for Kessler to reveal. As Cole looks down at a defeated Kessler, he hears him whisper something to himself, followed by Kessler doing the very same thing he did when he first met Cole, digging his fingers into his face. He showed Cole a further detailed sight of the future, one where a creature, the Beast, had emerged, planning to destroy all of humanity. Here, Kessler had the power to stop him, but instead chose to run in an attempt to save his family, leaving everyone else to fight for survival. In the end, the world went to hell, and Kessler was too late. He lost his family. In a fit of despair, he used a new power in his arsenal and went on a one-way trip back in time, aiming to rewrite his own history. He took control of the First Sons over Alden, expedited the development of the Ray Sphere, organized the Empire City Quarantine, found Cole, and plotted the blast. The one thing driving him, though, the one thing he had from the past, was a photo of his wedding day, the day he married Trish Daly, with none other than Zeke Jedediah Dunbar as his best man, and thus revealing to Cole that he was staring at none other than his future self. Kessler's entire plan was to have Cole's powers awaken much earlier, sever any emotional ties, and mold him into the savior Kessler felt he himself should have been from day one. After the revelation, Kessler finally falls to the ground, lifeless. In that moment, with his hatred for Kessler festering, Cole declared that,
But when the time comes, I will be ready.
this, to me, is why I believe evil karma makes sense for the first inFAMOUS game. Cole started off as a nobody, just a bike courier doing his job and doing exactly as he was told. Once the blast happened, and after having clinically died, Cole knew he had to protect those closest to him. But power always comes at a cost. You're gonna make more enemies than you had before. Not everyone has the same moral compass, and everyone has an idea of what they do until they get backed in a corner. Circumstances like the Empire City Quarantine can very well make or break even the most morally sound person, and Cole isn't an exception. He lost Trish, and in a way also lost Zeke, at least for a time. But unlike Kessler, he couldn't let it destroy him. He may have messed up and gone down a bad path to start, but the man he was before the blast wasn't too far gone. When staring down the device that gave him his powers, he knew he couldn't let it corrupt anyone else again. Thinking of not only Trish, but also of Amy and Zeke, he summoned his ionic storm, blasting it with every ounce of power he had within. Shortly after, he fought Kessler using the very same power against him that he did with the Ray Sphere. Although the fight was far from over, Zeke was still with him, for better or for worse, and Cole knew that he'd have to do right by Trish, even if it was the last thing he did. However, this is just my take on things.
I will be ready.
Thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed my amended version of my take on this game. Y'all can feel free to agree or disagree with it, and even point out where I might have missed things. I do hope this version of the video is at least a little better than the first one I did. Like I said before though, I'm not going to take down the original video. It shows where I started off, and it's something I can go back and compare how I was to how I currently am. I realized down the line that there's a good chance that Cole probably wouldn't hoard the food for him, Zeke, and Trish in the beginning. Plus, a lot of my explanations for the decisions were rather piss poor, to say the least. So here's hoping this makes up for it. I also didn't expect it to go as viral as it has. I mean, it's sitting at about 200,000 views right now. Holy shit. A lot of those who dropped comments about my reasonings had valid criticisms that I will fully not argue with, but I think others didn't get the memo or just flat out dropped comments and dipped without watching the video fully. Which, each of their own, y'all can do whatever the fuck you want. Any constructive criticism is valid around here, and I can't make y'all do anything. But the point is, I just hope this is a bit better than it was the first time around. If y'all enjoyed this, drop a like, sub to the channel, and follow me on my socials down below. More videos similar to this will come soon, and for different games as well. And also, thank you for making the original video go as viral as it has. It's an amazing sight to see, especially since I still have screenshots of when the video first broke 100 views. With all that said, y'all stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Sucker Punch! Hey, Sucker Punch! Yeah, we've been over this. Give us more Infamous, damn it! You'd be printing money at that point, come on!